Hello, I'm Lucy Zelledge from SBS Television and welcome along to the Torrens University Open Day. It's so fantastic to have you joining us from wherever you're tuning in. We're coming to you live from the Alumni campus right in the heart of Sydney here. And over the next couple of hours, we'll be showing you just a little bit of what Australia's newest and fastest growing, yes, you heard right, fastest growing university has to offer you. Before we begin though, we'd first like to pay our respects to our First Nations people and their elders, past, present and future. In particular, we'd also like to acknowledge the custodians of the land on which we meet here today and where our campuses stand. Now, Torrens University has 11 sites right across the country, along with the award-winning Media Design School in Auckland. Throughout the morning, we'll be crossing live to some of those campuses to check in on what's happening. It's a packed schedule and we have some truly impressive special guests for you. So let's get started. First, we're going to take a look around the Design and Creative Technology faculty. Let's check.
Adventure into design, where ideas, artistry and technology transform worlds. Love what you do at Torrens University, Australia.
Now, to tell us a little bit how it all began and what the future looks like, I'm joined by the hugely impressive General Manager of the Design and Creative Technology faculty, Paul Brayfield. Paul, welcome along to Open Day. What an exciting day it is.
Wow, what an intro. Thank you very much. It's great to be here.
No, it's great to have you as well. Now, Torrens, as I said earlier, is Australia's newest university, but its roots run far deeper, Paul, than many of our viewers tuning in will know about. Can you tell us a little bit about the history of this particular faculty?
Yeah, you bet. I was doing the maths in my head just before we were starting, and 34 years actually for Billy Blue College of Design. So it was started in
34 years? Has it been that long?
That long. Started in 1987 out of a small design studio, Billy Blue Creative, with a couple of local Sydney design legends, Ross Renwick and Aaron Kaplan, who thought, you know, we can't get the graduates we want from the universities. We're going to teach people ourselves, and they thought they'd get four interns. They had 66 people turn up in the queue, and the rest is history. Here we are today. So,
wow. Has it surpassed expectation from your perspective?
Has it what? It's just been amazing. And I think, you know, in relation to Torrens, you know, a critical turning point was joining the Torrens family, becoming part of this new university, which I think, coupled with the history of Billy Blue, has just, you know, really put a rocket under our reach and our capacity to do great things for students. So.
I have to tell you, I only recently had the pleasure of being introduced to the Torrens family, as you said there, and I can't tell you how impressed I am. And actually, to be completely honest with everybody, envious. I mean, I'm a university graduate myself, but to hear about everything that this university has on offer, just how progressive it is in its thinking, it is so impressive.
Well, look, we always welcome people back, lifelong learning, so that's what I'd say to that.
And that's one of its true advantages as well. Now, there's a big focus, and following on from that point, on producing industry-ready graduates. That's really important, I'd have to say. But what does that mean, and how do you actually go about it?
Yeah, good question, because, I mean, you've worked for many universities over the years, and we all universities say that. But one of the reasons I joined this organisation was that we don't just say it, we walk the walk. So it means we talk to industry on a daily basis. Industry involved in the design of our programs deeply and intimately. They set the projects that our students undertake. They come in and sit on assessment panels and assess students' work, provide that critical feedback, offer internships, offer placements. They are our staff. We have so many of our fabulous teaching staff are industry active members. So it's deeply part of our DNA in everything we do.
Which is really, really important. Now, back, you know, when I was going to school, and I'm talking year 9, year 10, I did a design and technology class. But this involved making really hideous-looking candle holders and bookends that my mum ended up shoving in the shed because there was no real interest in showcasing them in the house.
A few of those, so.
Probably too many for my mum's liking. Who knows where they are now? But I want you to talk to me about the marriage of design and creative technology. What was that really done with the future in mind as well?
Absolutely, and also an acknowledgement of the state of the design industry anyway. So it was a very conscious rebrand for us, obviously, and a renaming. Certainly, and it reflects the state to which the design industry, the traditional design industry, as if there is such a thing really, these days is intertwined with the development and the use of new tech and the tech industry. So, I mean, a couple of examples of that were we're at the big global IBM conference a couple of years back when you were allowed to gather face to face. Remember that? And,
no, not anymore.
no, and the powerful fact that came up there that IBM, that big global tech giant, has employed 20,000 designers around the globe.
Wow.
Because design is so intimately part of developing great new tech that works for human beings and thinking in a human-centered way and in a creative way. So there's that connection around the future. And also, all areas of design practice are deeply, deeply driven and infused by tech. You need to talk to people like our amazing interior design team who are doing AR, VR creations and creating virtual spaces, or people in our fashion team creating digital fashion avatars. So the tech is everywhere in all aspects of design.
How much, from your perspective and from being involved in the industry, has the design industry changed over the years?
Well, the rise of tech as from a tool that, and I remember this as a designer sort of thinking, oh, that's something I might want to be interested in, through to like, this is what I live and breathe and this is how I conduct my practice. Probably for most people in the sector, that hasn't felt like a sudden revolution at some point. That's just being part of the natural curiosity and mindset that comes with being a creative. It's like you're always looking for and interested in new tools and new ways of communicating and expressing yourself. So I think it's been a really organic rise of tech. That's probably the big change over a long time. Yeah.
And really exciting for prospective students as well to think about that.
100%. If you've got that spark of interest in creating and communicating, the opportunities that come to do that through technology are just so exciting. Come and see us, come and talk to us.
Absolutely. And so I have to know, and for those watching, they'll also have to know, Paul, but what is it that sets this particular institution apart for those prospective students that we just touched on that have a real passion for design?
Practical classes. You won't have what we call in the education business. There's no inauthentic assessment with us. You won't be writing essays for essays' sake. You'll be doing you will be writing, but you'll be doing creative practice that is about exactly what you'll be doing in industry. When you walk in the door, we'll refer to you as a designer. You will be one. You should think of yourself as one in here, and your lessons in your classes will be conducted as if you're working. And I think that industry immersive experience is why you come to us and why you'll be a success.
Oh, and it all sounds fantastic. If only that kind of message was sold to me back when I was going through university, Paul.
Likewise.
Absolutely fabulous to see you. Thank you so much for your insights. It's been invaluable. All right, it's time now to head upstairs where Charlotte, our very own Charlotte, is standing by with our first special guest of the day.
Thanks so much, Lucy. I am so excited and honoured to welcome to Torrens University today the one and only Steve Cordoni. So Steve is one of Australia's best interior stylists with an extensive list of clientele. And he's here to have a chat with us today about the industry, your career to date. Yes, very exciting.
And I'm very excited to set up our workspace at home and show you, with more and more people working from home, like me, how to style up a workspace. So I guess we'll start with the basics. Thank you. So for me, if you don't have a separate desk area, it's still about choosing those pieces where you can create a bit of a mood and a bit of a styled set. So key things are, if you've got some natural lighting, great to set up the office by there. If you've got an ergonomic chair, it's a really number one key practical item. Task lighting is a huge one. And then for me, no matter whether I'm styling a desk or whether I'm styling any kind of other vignette or any other space within the home, it's all about the pieces that you choose. So interesting textures, interesting materials, things that are going to go with your interior decor that you've kind of provided throughout the house. So what I'll do is a little demonstration of how to kind of style up this desk space, again, which gives you the sort of practical tools and knowledge to be able to style up this space. So again, practically in terms of functionality, task lighting is a really important one when, creating an office space. But again, throughout the house, lighting is really important, whether it's table lamps, floor lamps, overhead lighting, pendants. that's a really crucial kind of key, not only to the aesthetic of the space, but also to the mood of the space. So we've got this really beautiful designed, Italian designed Snoopy lamp, which is going to sit on the side. And again, you can see automatically we've got some beautiful marble and this great sort of punch of green, which is a really exciting color. So then from there, again, we haven't got the hugest space to work with, but what I like to do is layer up the space. So trays are a really good tool to be able to kind of put all the little bits and pieces, again, within this workspace, but also on a coffee table, on a console, on an entrance hallway. These are a really great tool to be able to kind of layer up and style small vignettes. So what I'm going to do there from there is add just a book. Again, it's all about layering on top of each other. So we've got this beautiful tray, which is a char green material, which I love, and then add the book, and then you can add little bits and pieces that you want to kind of create this styled moment. So a beautiful little ceramic bowl, you know, things like this, think about the materials that you're choosing. So rather than just get sort of something simple and plain, a really interesting texture of a beautiful ceramic can house little interesting things that you need for the desk. So then we're going to add a beautiful scent, because scent is really important. We're going to add some beautiful pens into this beautiful brass bowl. And again, it's just all about the pieces that you choose in terms of the decor. Now, greenery is the other really important tool to be able to use, but also kind of brings the outside in, and it kind of just creates a beautiful mood and feeling, especially when, you know, we're stuck working.
So Steve, you've mentioned a real crucial and important things here.
Yes.
How important is it to learn these fundamental skills right when you start out in the industry?
It's so important because I think all of this sort of nice, pretty, decorative stuff always comes back to those fundamentals that I know I learned 12, 13 years ago when I studied. But it's all about, you know, colour, materiality, functionality, planning, layout, and that's all learnt, you know, that's what I learnt from the get-go. And so that's where I take it through. Even though this is all the fun stuff, you've got to learn the fundamentals first.
Perfect, perfect.
So now, so we've, you know, added just a couple of our little trays here. Again, another texture, another material, some leather. Think about scent, that overall intangible mood of a beautiful scented candle. And again, this is just grouping of things, two little vignettes on either end of the table, and it just creates a really nice space to be able to work and enjoy the workspace.
Yeah, I love the lamp.
It's one of my favourites.
Yeah, it's beautiful. Where do you draw your inspiration from?
So for me, you know, now in the world of digital media, we've got so much at our fingertips. So Instagram is great, magazines, I still love pouring through magazines and books, but also just online, looking around. But a lot of the things is not just derived from interiors, it's fashion design that kind of creates, you know, materials. They're so good with that, and colours. Nature is a really good one for colour combinations. So I think it's a myriad of things, but any kind of space can be derived from one singular piece of inspiration, and that's what is most exciting for me.
Yeah, all right, awesome. So what have we got next?
Okay, so this is basically the kind of the setup here. If you've got larger sort of spaces to work with, you can kind of move these to the side, but, you know, whether you're styling a workspace or whether it's a coffee table or a console, like I said, creating these vignettes, which basically a vignette means a grouping of things, is really important to styling a space, basically. So really basic sort of styling tools, think of things in groups of threes. So we've got 1, 2, 3 here, and we've also got 3 different heights. So we've got high, medium, and low. So if you kind of play with those heights and those sort of groupings, you're going to create a really well-edited space, whether it's a workspace or whether it's, you know, any other space in the house.
I think you'll be proud of me. I do have a plant on my desk at home.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, indoor plants are so important, whether it's floral. I like to use these sort of succulent things because they do last a bit longer. And for me, they're just a really great way to bring, again, outdoors in. It kind of creates some freshness. And even though this is a workspace and it's very practical and it's very functional, it's still got enough beautiful pieces, some interesting textures, which are going to work within the overall interior scheme that you've got going on within the house.
All right, cool, lovely.
Thank you. So yeah, so you can play with it. Again, this is sort of similar to what I've got at home. So quite neutral. I've got a punch of green here because this is my sort of palette. So green, grey, white. But within that, you need to think about materials. I keep on banging on about the materials, but that's a really important way to kind of create a monochromatic look that has a lot of depth and a lot of layering. And they're really important tools and skills, which again, going back to what I studied, all those little things, which sometimes you don't kind of make sense at that point of time, but when everything's coming together, when you're creating a room or when you're creating a space, all those things play off each other. Proportion, scale, materiality, functionality, all these things have to work in conjunction together to be able to create a really successful space.
Yeah, it's like a marriage of materials.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. All has to work together. So even the intangible element is probably another big one. So I've got my favourite cologne, and I've also got a beautiful scented candle. And for me, these are the really important ones that you can't see, but you can kind of feel within the space. And so going back to sort of practicality-wise, these trays, when you're creating mood boards, and whenever I start a project, I always start with a mood board. So I've got this beautiful tray here. So when I'm working with materials in terms of paint samples and beautiful fabric samples and some gorgeous marble, what it's a really great idea is to take this tray from your vignette and then sort of move it in, and you can play and use and create this mood board for whatever scheme you're working on. So to keep all those elements and house those elements together, it's a really great way to see what the potential scheme will look like eventually once it's installed.
All right, awesome. Anything else we're adding today?
So that's probably pretty much it. Well, we've got some additional elements like some other books. Books are probably my number one styling tool.
Yep.
Whether you've got a coffee table, whether you've got a workspace, whether you've got a bedside table, they are all about layering. So I like to keep them really quite neutral, so greys and whites and blacks, and they're just really great tools to be able to sort of layer on. So if we kind of wanted to take this tray out and use that for our mood board, if we're presenting to a client or we're kind of wanting to show them exactly how the scheme is going to look, then we get rid of the tray and we can do a stack of books, and that's going to work similar to how the tray is. So it's just about those layering tools. And see, those two things go back on top of there, and then we can use this tray to be able to house all of our materials. So you can see that books are not only practical, and I like to read them, but I have to be real with you. I probably buy them more for the look rather than actually pouring through them all the time.
Yeah.
But they're just a great styling tool, and you always need them to again layer the space. And then again, you can use this beautiful tray to layer up your scheme. And for me, going back to mood boards, still to this day, it was probably one of the first things that I learnt when I was studying, but it's actually the number one thing, no matter what project I'm working on, that's what to start with, because that's almost going to be your blueprint to take throughout your scheme and your project. Sometimes you can get a bit carried away, you can see other things, you can get a bit excited by what you're seeing out in the market, but if you've got this as your blueprint, you're always going to come back to that, and it's going to carry you through the project.
All right, awesome. Thank you so much, Steve. If you would like to see more from one of our favourite Torrens friends, Steve, he has filmed an amazing masterclass for us tomorrow from your country home.
I have.
About creating, was it a mood board?
Mood board, yes, and how to take that through into your scheme.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much.
Pleasure.
Now, we've spent some time in the interior design world. We're going to move on over now to graphic design. Excellent. Hey, Xander, how you going? Welcome to Open Day.
How are you?
Very, very good. I'm joined today with Xander Clark, who is one of our brilliant alumni from Torrens and Billy Blue College of Design. Do you want to tell us a little bit about your journey with us?
So I guess it's probably best to start a little bit before. I've always been a creative person, but really from finishing school I had no idea about all the amazing things you can do as a creative. So I actually went to a different uni for 3 years and studied architecture. And a lot of the friends I made there were doing graphic design, and all the work that they were doing just seemed so much more fun and so much more me. So eventually I made the switch, and it was the best decision I ever made starting here in 2015. Yeah, right from the get-go, it really opened my eyes to just so many different areas you can really work as a creative. And I think the beauty of technology now is it's just constantly changing and evolving, and your career can change even after it's already started. And yeah, it's just been a great experience ever since.
Yeah, and that's a very interesting point, because the realms of technology and design have collided more and more each year as there's new tech developed, new ideas, new concepts. Tell me a little bit about one of your favourite things about your journey while studying with Billy Blue. What was one of the key things that you enjoyed the most?
Definitely learning all the programs, Adobe programs, because before that I always drew by hand. I did everything on print and stuff, and like becoming, the great thing here is also the teachers really like helped me learn the programs, which I think a lot of unis don't do. They just kind of chuck the courses at you and it's up to you to work it out. So yeah, getting really good and proficient at all the Adobe programs was definitely my favourite one of my favourite things about this place, and has helped me a lot. Yeah.
Awesome. So it's safe to say that passion definitely unlocks potential. What would be one of your key tips to the audience for students who are considering moving into the design space this year or next year?
I think you need to keep an open mind, and you really need to constantly be trying to learn and evolve. As creatives, it's very easy to kind of build an ego and think that, which is great, is you need to be confident and in your abilities, and definitely there's so many amazing talented people out there, but you need to be able to constantly get rid of that ego and be willing to learn and adapt and meet new people, and I think that's especially important in today's climate when our industry is constantly changing. So yeah, just keep an open mind, I guess.
Yeah, open mind and connection, it's really, really important. Now we're really, really lucky today. Xander will be working on a special project with us, and we'll be checking in on him throughout the day. Do you want to give us a little overview of what you're working on today?
So the theme that I am putting at the core of my illustration is adventure. So I'm basically basing my illustration off my adventure into graphic design, communication design.
All right, awesome. I'm very excited to check in with you throughout the day and share with our audience online as well as on campus today the work that you'll be doing. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. I'd like to cross now to our Melbourne campus where we have the amazing Clement.
Thank you so much, Charlotte. And yes, we are coming from our newly renovated campus here opposite the Flinders Station. It looks fantastic. We are going to take you bit of a tour later on in the morning, so really, really good to be here. I do have another of our wonderful alumni, Rachel.
Yeah.
How are you?
I'm good, thank you. Well, yeah, I haven't been renovated, and it looks amazing. So.
You have been one of our communication design students here. You studied it. What got you interested in this field?
Yeah, I've always been super interested. I loved doing art when I was younger, and my friends were kind of like, well, if you're so, follow that. And so, because I'm from Canberra, so I moved here, and I got looking around at different design schools, and I came to the Billy Blue Open Day back in 2016. I came to the Billy Blue Open Day, and yeah, it was awesome. So I signed up, enrolled, and yeah, it's been incredible.
And got through and graduated.
Yes.
What are you doing now?
So now I'm working at a design studio in St Kilda. So yes, I work, it's called Motor Brand Design, and we're a packaging and design firm. So that's where I'm working, and we have some really big clients such as Aldi. So that's where I'm currently at. So it's
totally immersed in the industry now.
Yes.
But when you studied here, you actually got an opportunity. You did an internship at Vogue.
Yes.
Tell me about it.
Yes. So yeah, I'm in Melbourne, but I went to Sydney. So went there for 2 weeks. I actually have the magazines that I worked on. So Vogue, I did a 1-week internship for them, and also GQ magazine. So these are the 2 issues that I was working on while I was there, but it was really cool. So starting off with GQ magazine, when I was there, pretty much with that, it was awesome. So I got to help compile imagery that's seen throughout this magazine issue. And then for Vogue, I worked on I got to work in the fashion closet, so with Chris Hemsworth for one of his fashion shoots that was coming up. Did that, which was incredible, as well as I created a lot of the horoscopes that were seen across Vogue's Instagram, their social media accounts, to like 800,000 of their followers. So it was really, really cool, and just an awesome experience.
All packed into 2 weeks. That's amazing.
Yes.
How important is it that while students are studying, that they actually get some experience in industry?
Yeah, it's really, I would say, important, because it just it helps to widen what you know from being at university. So being in industry is completely different. Like obviously you have your deadlines with assignments and things like that, but then when you apply that to the real world scenario, it's just completely different. So yeah, it's very, and then also relationship building too. So you get to meet some awesome people in the field, in the industry, and yeah, it's an incredible experience. So definitely when the opportunity arises, take it. Yeah.
What would you say to people who have a passion for design, want to get into it, but don't quite know how to do it? What advice would you have for them?
I would say take any opportunity that comes your way. So any open days that arise, definitely go to them because they're so important. So yes, that would be my my feedback.
And that's the main thing when even trying to break into the industry, it's mainly open days. Are there other things that you would advise them to do?
Yeah, I would also, so go along to open days, talk to anyone that's in the industry currently, just really do your research and talk to your teachers or talk to anyone that's currently studying and just, yeah, definitely, yeah, do that. So yeah.
Fantastic. There were some, of course, other students who've made their way to Vogue, who did internships as well. Let's hear about some of their experiences.
I'm passionate about design and creating spaces people want to interact with.
Billy Blue has allowed me to form close relationships and connections with my lecturers and the people who I've met in the industry. I always knew I wanted to study fashion design. Ever since doing musicals in Year 7 and doing the costume design, it seemed like the obvious choice.
For me, inspiration comes from everywhere. Because graphic design is so varied, I'm able to apply that inspiration to all kinds of different jobs.
I chose Billy Blue because I heard they had great industry connections, like the opportunity to intern at Vogue.
When I found out I got the Vogue internship, I was so excited, but I was pretty nervous, like it's Vogue.
Definitely a career goal.
My studies in interior design helped me better understand the marriage between a space and its styling while on set.
I always learn to put myself out there and to make connections wherever you can. You never know where it might lead you in the future.
I learned so much, but mainly that attention to detail and persistence is the key to producing amazing work.
Now, if that isn't enough to have you already reaching for the Apply Now button, I'm not sure what is. Rachel, thank you. Thank you very much for joining us this morning.
No, thank you. It's awesome to be here.
Wonderful. And we are now going to head off to sunny Queensland to hear from another special guest. Lauren Barth is a photographer, a travel writer, and is also Australia's first professional Instagram influencer. She came into our Brisbane campus earlier this week to talk about her career and her thoughts on the state of the industry in 2021.
My name is Damien Campagnolo and I'm one of the Course and Careers Advisors here at Torrens University. And today we're going to be talking photography. I'm joined by someone who knows exactly what it's like to make a living behind a camera. Lauren Barth, welcome to Open Day.
Thank you so much for having me.
Today we're talking about the concept of professional practice. In other words, how to turn photography from a hobby into a career. Lauren, how important is it for someone to learn the basics properly if they are serious about a career in photography?
I actually teach photography sometimes myself, and I advise anyone looking to get into photography as a full-time profession to know the camera inside and out.
Absolutely.
Having a great eye obviously counts for a lot, but sometimes you'll accidentally get good shots. And when you're going out there in a commercial capacity, you need to be able to replicate those good results. Accidental is not good enough.
No.
So being able to go out there knowing that you can replicate great settings, getting good photographs consistently in any environment is really, really important when you are charging for your work. So yeah, I would say definitely knowing the technical ability of your camera, knowing how to do photography, knowing all of that stuff is your baseline.
Lauren, you were one of the first people to understand the power of Instagram as a commercial platform. You're noted as Australia's first professional Instagram influencer. How did that come about?
It's a pretty cool claim to fame. So I actually wasn't a photographer originally. I got into photography through Instagram. I loved Instagram first, and that was my hobby when I was still working as a chef. I was obviously a creative person, stumbled across Instagram back in 2011, so very early days. And through Instagram, I discovered that I really liked taking pictures. And back then it was on an iPhone 4, so not the highest quality images if you want to scroll back and see that work. But I just really enjoyed it, right? Like I enjoyed the practice of putting something together that would start a conversation. And what I actually did was I bought a camera because I wanted to get better on Instagram, not get better on photography. So I got my new camera and I started going out and experimenting. I met communities of people on Instagram that also were into photography. And I was doing that for a couple of years, but at a time when Instagram was absolutely exploding. Like it went from being this very sort of unknown platform that, you know, photographers weren't taking seriously. It was just this random group of people out there with their iPhones taking pictures. And it went from there to being absolutely exploding. It was released on the Android market. It famously sold to Facebook for $1 billion, and all of a sudden people were taking notice. All through that time, I was busy growing. You know, I had a point of difference, which was I was shooting on a camera and not a mobile phone. I had a really good community, and I loved the community because that's what hooked me in first, not the photography. And I was really well established when the platform started to attract a lot of new, you know, a bigger audience. I was growing around 1,000 followers a day. And after about 18 months of that, still working as a chef, I just thought to myself, if I don't do something about this, like see what opportunities there are and explore maybe a different career path, I'll regret it forever. So I quit my job, which was actually terribly scary and like a really major junction in my life. And I started to email tourism boards and ask them to pay me to Instagram their destination, which wasn't a thing, you know, at all, not Australia-wide, not internationally. It just wasn't an industry yet. I obviously had a lot of people ignore me, a lot of people laugh at me, a lot of people be like, what do you mean Instagram? Like, didn't even know the platform, but a couple of people said yes. And that gave me case studies and that gave me leverage to get other opportunities. And over the course of, it's now 9 years since I quit my job, I've worked on say 250 different travel campaigns. So those are different destinations. And I've been to some really cool places. I've been to Antarctica. I've been and seen the Northern Lights in Finland. I've been all over the world. You know, yes, I leveraged my Instagram audience, you know, my influence on that platform, but the camera is the tool to actually do my job and to be able to perform that work. So yeah, it's been a really amazing ride, and there's been lots of different avenues along the way that I've explored. But yeah, that's what led me to being called Australia's first professional Instagrammer and to be where I am today.
Pretty great claim to fame, I think.
Not bad.
Now, Lauren, what would you say to someone who believes that the commercial photography industry has taken a big hit since the pandemic?
Yeah, look, I mean, it's funny because everybody says that a lot of industries have taken a big hit during the pandemic. And in a way they have, because industries are changing really dramatically at the moment. But in actual fact, I believe that there's more opportunity now than there ever has been before. Tourism and travel and, you know, even looking at your mum and pop restaurants and cafes and all of these industries that we have, they are all desperate to recapture market share. And to do that, they need marketing, right? And for effective marketing, they need content. Like, content is literally what makes the world go around these days. Everybody has social media. Everybody needs to have their website now. They have these beasts that need to be fed. So if you're a photographer and you have the skill to create that content, all that you need to do is, you know, A, understand how to use your camera, obviously, and create good images and good content. But you also need to know how to market to these people, help them to understand what problem your photography will solve for them, and then go out into the world and serve.
Are there any trends you see that'll shake up the industry in 2021?
Look, there's always trends. There's always big changes. Like, one of the trends I see in the tourism industry in particular is that there's more of a lean towards video than still photography right now. But photography is not going anywhere. Different people consume content differently. And right now there's still a huge appetite for beautiful, emotive still photography. But trends, I mean, TikTok, obviously, we can't ignore that. Reels, which is an Instagram phenomenon. I would say if you're a photographer and you're actually out there marketing and looking for clients, you can utilize these trends and these tools for your marketing, but still deliver on your promise of stills photography. That's one way around it. And there's a new one called Clubhouse. I don't know if you've heard of this yet. It's kind of like an audio social media platform. It's literally gained in popularity in the last week.
Wow.
It's a marketing tool. So for photographers, another chance to get out there, meet prospective clients, talk about the work that you do, you know, really be out there shouting from the rooftop how important it is to have beautiful photography for your business or, you know, whatever it is. Another great use of photography is obviously capturing memories. I myself am a first-time mum recently, and I hire photographers for capturing, you know, I've got a photographer hired for my daughter's first birthday. I had a birth photographer. I had a bump photographer. So lots of different ways that you can get out there in the photography industry.
We talked a bit earlier about the importance of learning the basic skills, but having the right equipment is just as important. What's your go-to piece of kit?
Look, there's always going to be somebody out there, well, everybody out there, that are looking for the next best thing in equipment. And I love this saying, and it really resonated with me in the beginning. I have everything I'll ever need, said no photographer ever, right? Like there's always the next piece of gear that you want to have. So I would say don't get too caught up in that game. There's no one camera system that is the best at everything. So have a look at what's important to you as a creative person. Have a look at the camera that best suits what you're looking for. Get the camera and don't stuff around, like just stick with that for a little while. Obviously, if you're working as a professional photographer, you will want to have professional lenses, you know, fast lenses. We say 2.8 lenses. But remember that I got started in photography with an iPhone 4 and there's a lot you can do with a simple entry-level SLR and a couple of really good pro lenses.
Awesome. There'll be a lot of people watching this who are considering a career in photography. Could you give us your top 3 tips for building a sustainable business?
Absolutely. I have built a very sustainable business in photography. So 3 tips that I would give. Number 1 is to make sure you know how to use your gear. Like that's your baseline, right? You want to be able to go out there and be really confident in your ability to deliver to your clients. So that's number 1. Number 2, don't ignore social media. Do not ignore it. Like social media is literally, it's marketing, it's networking. If you're a photographer and you're ignoring social media, you'll have a really slow burn to get your career off the ground. My 3rd tip is to get help. Now, I have been a huge advocate for getting coaching for a long time. I moved away from exclusively doing photography a few years ago. And one of the first things that I did when I was changing my business model was to get a coach. And the great thing about a coach is they're going to teach you a whole bunch of stuff that is outside of the scope of what you know. A really good example is how you price yourself. If you don't have a whole lot of experience in the photography industry, you might know a few people who do little shoots out of their basement or their garage and they're charging $50 for mini photo shoots. And you might start to believe that that's all you can get as a photographer. However, if you hire a coach, they might be able to give you a better idea of pricing, a better idea of attracting your key demographic, like the person that would pay whatever your pricing is. You'll get a really good idea of marketing, how to get more leads, how to get better sales skills, how to upsell people. So many different skills that you might not already know. And I know there's a really huge emphasis on that, on the business side of things with your diplomas. So absolutely go out there and get that business information. There's so many successful photographers out there who you can get information off or learn from.
Lauren Bath, thank you so much for joining us today. Some great advice for anyone with a passion for photography. Now it's back to Lucy at our Alumni studio.
Fantastic stuff. Welcome back to Ultimo. You're watching Torrens University's Open Day. Haven't we had some truly fantastic guests so far? I mean, in a short space of time, I've already learned how to design my desk and how to unlock the powers and the tools that social media have. And so many more wonderful people that we'll hear from today as well. So make sure you stick around. In a short moment, we'll cross live to our Pyrmont campus to catch up with author and naturopath Reese Carter. But before we do that, for all of you budding health nuts out there, let's have a look at what our health and nursing faculty here at Torrens has to offer you.
Make a career out of caring with a health course. You'll get hands-on practical experience in world-class clinics, making a difference to real patients. Love what you do at Torrens University, Australia.
guys. It's fantastic. Let's head over to Piermont now, where we're catching up with Teresa. Teresa, over to you.
Thank you, Lucy. Hi, guys. I am here with the herb nerd himself, Rhys Carter. Welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having me back.
No, thank you. So, Rhys, talk us through. What are you going to be doing today?
Okay, so first of all, thank you for having me back here at Torrens, and thank you for having me to talk about a passion of mine, which is food as medicine, and in particular, food as medicine in terms of mental well-being. And so what I'm going to be making today is a Mediterranean salmon and quinoa bowl. Beautiful. With green tahini and a pine nut and caper salsa of sorts, which sounds super fancy, but it's really not. It's really simple.
Sounds delicious.
And that's my favorite kind of recipe, especially when we're talking about nutrition and trying to get people to make meaningful long-term change to their diet. It's got to be easy. It's got to be achievable. Now, I'm going to talk you through a few of these ingredients.
Please do.
What we know about them from a point of nutrition science, but more importantly, food as medicine is not just about one individual food or a set of individual foods or individual nutrients. It's about eating patterns and dietary patterns. And so in particular today, we're going to be looking at the Mediterranean diet, which you might know a little bit about already.
Just a little bit. Just a little bit.
That's Teresa's Italian heritage
Background.
Coming through.
It is.
Now, Mediterranean diet is so exciting because there's a whole lot of research done around it and mental health. And in particular, there was a landmark study done 4 years ago in 2017 here in Australia. We love Australian researchers.
We do.
That looked at Mediterranean diet in depression, and over a period of 12 weeks saw significant improvement in symptoms. And so that's why I'm such a passionate advocate for teaching people how to eat like this. So let's jump in.
Yes, please.
We're going to start with, as we would think, quinoa, because it's a quinoa salad. So I've cooked that before I came in today. Now,
so, talk us through.
So super easy cooking quinoa. You can do it in stock, you can do it in water. What's most important is that it's a whole grain, right? So, making a mess of your clinic already.
That's fine. We won't tell them, it's fine.
Please don't tell them. So what's really important is that it's a whole grain. And the reason is we've still got the fibre intact, we've still got the B vitamins and the magnesium. When you start to refine grains, you lose all that goodness. Now, fibre is really important here, and I want to stop and talk about that for a minute because fibre is so important for gut health.
Yes.
And my second book is actually called The Happy Gut, and it's all about that link between gut health and mental well-being. And I know we don't have a lot of time, so I'm going to try and get to the really important bit here. More fibre and more diversity of fibre means more diversity of happy gut bacteria, and that has implications for mental well-being. So fibre is super important, not just for kind of general digestive kind of regularity, which is what people think about when they think about fibre, but it's actually about what we're feeding the gut bacteria. So whole grains, always whole grains. Next, we're going to add our veggies. And look, with our veggies and our salad ingredients, all of them are as good as each other. You often hear people talk about certain superfoods, this food's better than that. My key takeaway is eat a rainbow of veggies and eat variety.
Talk us through the rainbow. Okay,
so
give us the two reasons first. Give us the two reasons.
First of all, the different colours in different vegetables and plants give us a bit of a hint at what nutrients are in there. So if you think of your leafy greens, our kale, our spinach, that kind of thing, they're usually really high in vitamin K and in iron. You look at broccoli, it's really high in vitamin C. Whereas our red, orange and yellow veggies, they tend to be really high in vitamin A derivatives. Now, none of these nutrients are of benefit if you don't have all of them. Does that make sense? You need to be eating all of these food groups to get all of this nutrition. And the easiest way to do that is just focus on getting a lot of colour on your plate. The other reason I'm such an advocate for diversity is that each of these different food groups, or each of these different plant-based foods rather, have a different type of fibre, which means they feed different bacteria in the gut. And to bring it back to gut health, again, which in turn affects mental health, we want diversity. We want lots of different types of bacteria. There's not one that's good for us. We need a whole healthy ecosystem. And the way to do that, lots of diversity of plant ingredients. So we're going to add all different kinds of colour today. We've got some cucumber here.
Great. But you can do this with anything, right? Any veggies, any,
Anything you want.
Okay,
anything you want. So we've got some cherry tomatoes in here as well, and I got the yellow ones and the red ones.
Nice.
Yum, yum.
Starting to look like
I've
a
got
rainbow.
some really thinly sliced radish, which I love. I think the key with radish is it does have to be really thinly sliced. So we're just going to chuck that in there as well. And some red onion as well. Again, really, really thinly sliced.
Amazing.
So now the next superstar ingredient, salmon.
Great.
So there's a lot of fish and seafood in the Mediterranean diet, right? And the reason that we know that this, or one of the reasons this is really good for us, and this is probably going to come as a surprise to no one at home, is that these seafoods are really high in omega-3 fatty acids. You have to be living under a rock, I think, to not have heard.
Look, you know, some people, it's good to explain.
Exactly.
Some people don't know these things.
Exactly. And look, and omega-3s, especially from fish sources, there's two really important players. There's EPA and DHA. Okay. So there are two different omega-3 fatty acids, and they're both really important for mental well-being because they're both incorporated into the nervous system, actual tissue itself. So DHA was the one that we traditionally kind of thought, oh yeah, that's really important for brain health, mental health, nervous system health, because there's so much of it in the brain that develops when we're in utero and straight after we're born as well. But what we're starting to learn is that there's a real link between inflammation and depression. And EPA, which is the other fatty acid, is actually an anti-inflammatory fat. So we're starting to think maybe it's more the EPA that's important, maybe it's more the DHA that's important, maybe it's both of them. What we do know is that it has to be part of an entire dietary pattern. So I cooked off this salmon before I came.
Beautiful.
Just going to flake that off. I swear I have clean hands.
We sanitised prior to this. So Reece, for people who don't really know your background or your story,
yes.
How did you get into natural therapies? You know, what was the drive?
So good question. Look, it was a bit of a journey to get here, I'd say. My first experience was seeing a naturopath when I was 14, and I went in with probably pretty typical teenage complaints. So I had, you know, skin complaints, a little bit of acne, and just like low energy, wasn't able to focus in class. And I had such a good experience with this naturopath for two reasons. Firstly, what he recommended worked, and secondly, I loved this approach to healthcare. I love the natural approach to healthcare. And I love the fact that I went in for a consultation and I spent an hour with him.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? He really took the time to get to know my situation, my challenges, and help develop a plan that would work for me. And I think that's part of the reason it worked. So that was what kind of got me started. Now, I'm not going to say I walked out of there and was like, yeah, I'm going to go and become a naturopath and a nutritionist. It took a few years to kind of brew. But when I think about the aha moment that made me go and study naturopathy and get my degree, it was reflecting on that experience, 100%. And yeah, so since then I've written books, I've kind of done a lot of public speaking. I went on to get another qualification so I could be a nutritionist as well, and just kind of never looked back.
Tie it all together in a bow.
Exactly. Now, okay, so we've got all our ingredients.
Yes.
I want to talk about what's going to make this recipe pop, because at the moment it's just a whole lot of healthy stuff.
I mean, it looks delicious, but yeah,
but
continue.
There's more. We can do more, I think.
There's more. Add a little spice, yeah.
So we've got two things. First of all, we've got this pine nut and caper salsa that I talked about. And so this is when I'm developing recipes, which I often do for clients, it's all about balancing the sweet, the salty, the umami, the bitter, and I've forgotten one, the sour. And so what we've got in here, we've got salty capers, there was some honey and some lemon juice that I kind of cooked this off in to bring those flavors, and we're just going to pop that over the top like so. Some fresh dill, because as you said, I am the herb nerd, and herbs are a fantastic way to boost the flavor of our meals without resorting to adding more salt, which we know is not good for us. So we're going to put that on there. I'm going to add some avocado because more unsaturated fats. So another big part of the Mediterranean diet is its focus on unsaturated fats. And avocado is packed with monounsaturated fats. So we're going to add some of that. Plus it's delicious.
I didn't really eat avocado until I came to Australia.
Oh yeah, we love it here.
You guys love it on everything.
On everything.
Everything.
So there we go. So we've got the salsa. The next kind of key ingredient, I might save to the end. I'll put that right on top. But I want to add some olive oil and a little lemon juice.
Love olive oil.
Now again, so we already know I've talked over and over about unsaturated fats. Olive oil is another one of those. The reason the Mediterranean diet uses olive oil over other unsaturated fats is it's also really high in what we call polyphenols, which are an antioxidant compound. So again, good for general health, good for cellular health, and also may have a role in mental well-being as well. So some of that, and kind of 60 mils a day is kind of the general recommendation. So a tablespoon on top of each of your meals. you'll get there.
This is where people in Italy live till they're like 100.
Well, yeah, there's that whole, have you heard of the blue zones?
No.
So there's these 5 regions on Earth where they have the most centennials, so the most people that reach 100, and a lot of it comes down to diet, and Sicily is one of them.
There you go.
So there you go. No, sorry, that's a lie. Not Sicily. Sardinia is one of them. Still Italy.
Listen, close.
It's close.
It's
Close. I knew that didn't sound right when I said it. Okay, and now the last little star ingredient we've got here is our green tahini. So I'm not sure if you've ever had green tahini before.
I have.
So this one is my special recipe. So this has got the tahini, which is like made from sesame seeds. So we've got all those, again, unsaturated fats. But I then blend through all my favorite herbs. So we're just going to spoon it over. There's parsley in this. There's some more dill. There's some mint, lemon juice, and some garlic as well, which of course, big part of the Mediterranean diet.
Yeah, we have garlic in everything.
So we're just going to pop that on top.
And smells delicious.
It's so yum. That's like my secret ingredient. Chuck that on anything and everything just becomes delicious.
Yes.
Little sea salt.
Beautiful.
Little black pepper.
Look at this.
And you're done.
I know what I'm having for lunch.
I know, we're set.
We are dead set.
There you
Look
go.
at that. Absolutely stunning. So with this, Reese, what would you say to aspiring naturopaths, nutritionists, people who want to start that journey? What's the most, what advice would you give?
I think people who are generally thinking about it, as a lot of you will be right now, considering it, have been brought here because you've got a passion for the topic. You've got a passion for health. You've got a passion for a natural approach to health and a preventative approach to health as well. So let that guide you. If you know you love it, but you don't know exactly what your career is going to look like yet, that's okay. You've got time to work that out. I had no idea that this is the kind of thing I'd be doing, you know, writing books, doing TV appearances, doing public speaking when I studied. But what kind of drove me the whole time is just that I knew that I love this topic, and I think there's such a demand for this topic. Like, people want to know more about this. You only have to talk about social media again, you only have to look at how much health content is being consumed online or on social media to know that people are hungry for this kind of information.
And there's a huge rise in that. And why do you think? Do you think it's because of our current circumstances, or people becoming more health conscious? Certainly in Australia, I feel like people in certain parts are very health conscious.
Yeah, look, I think a big part of it comes down to the fact that people are starting to experience not necessarily more diseases or new disease, as much as just kind of people are becoming more aware that they're not feeling as well as they could. Perhaps, you know, it's a chronic, you know, like fatigue or weight management, all these kind of or not sleeping well, or not managing stress, anxiety, all of those kinds of chronic long-term conditions that really require diet and lifestyle change, long-term change. People are realizing that they kind of have the power and the ability to make those changes, but they want to know how. So I think the demand is going up. I do think what's really important, though, is that people are getting that sort of information from qualified experts. That's why, if you're considering a career in health, in nutrition, in naturopathy, it's so important to get that qualification right first time round. Because there is a lot of bad information out there. There's a lot of misinformation, and you want to be kind of one of the champions fighting for the real power of kind of food as medicine and natural therapies. So you want to make sure that you're doing it right. You want to make sure you're getting off to a good start and getting the right qualification.
And you went to our beloved SSNT.
I was there recently, actually. Yeah.
Southern School of Natural Medicines over in Melbourne.
They're all beautiful campuses, but SSNT is particularly
close to your heart.
Yes.
Close to your heart. So there you have it. So this is the Mediterranean
salmon and quinoa bowl. Look, if you take a look at it, I'm not sure if they can see it on screen, but it is just bursting with colour, and that is so important. As I was talking about, in terms of getting that diversity of fibre, that diversity of plant-based foods. You should be. There are a few kind of key tips, I think, when it comes to building a bowl like this, or building any meal like this. First is champion plants.
Plants.
Make them the hero of your plate. It's great to have the salmon, it's great to have, and small amounts of kind of animal-based foods are totally fine. But we all need to be eating more plants. We need to be eating more diversity of plants. So make them take up at least 3/4 of your plate.
Okay.
Make sure that there's plenty of colour and variety. And if you're not sure if you're kind of getting enough colour and variety, I actually recommend making a list. So aim for 30 to 40 different plant-based foods over the week, over the course of an entire week, and that's kind of, you're hitting the mark that we want.
Yeah. The best way to store fresh foods as well, I throw everything in the fridge.
No.
And then, yeah, this is what people say, and they're like, don't put it in the fridge. So
some things are in the fridge. I think the bigger concern is when people throw it in the fridge and then forget about it and never use it. So my advice would be, again, in the name of keeping things simple, do your food prep. You know what I mean? You don't want to be one of those people who has a day of really good intentions, goes out and buys all the kind of fresh produce, stuffs it into the fridge, and then forgets about it the next day and lets it wilt.
Guilty, that's me.
So what I would do is spend your Sunday actually creating meals like this.
Yeah.
Put them in separate containers, put them in your fridge, and then you know that they're good to go.
Good to go.
And the reason, again, that's so important is I keep talking about it, but food as medicine isn't a one-off thing. You can't just
do it once and that's
eat
it.
well once and be fine. It's about creating long-term sustainable change.
Yeah.
And that's actually kind of one of the biggest challenges, I think, as a nutritionist or as a naturopath, is how do you actually guide and motivate a person to make those changes? Because quite often we want the quick fix, right? We want the supplement or the superfood, and it doesn't always work like that. It's more about those long-term changes.
It's habit and consistency. Exactly. And yeah, great. Well, guys, I think that's all we have time for today. Reese, thank you so much
for
joining us. Always a pleasure. I always learn so much from Reese. So guys, I am actually going to pass you across to continue this healthy living theme to our alumni Freya Lawler over in the Fitzroy campus in Melbourne, where she will be she joined us earlier this week to prepare a natural detox remedy. So let's check it out.
Hello and welcome to the Fitzroy campus. I'm here with our lovely graduate, Freya Lawler. Welcome.
Hi Jess, so nice to be here.
Welcome back. So what are you going to take us through today?
I'm going to make a little herbal detoxification formula. So as a naturopath, herbs are one of our favourite tools to use to support a patient's health. This formula is going to be particularly useful after the period of indulgence that we just had, post-lockdown, Christmas, New Year. It's going to get our liver functioning really beautifully and having us feeling really great.
Beautiful.
We've got a little bit of turmeric that we're using today. This is a delicious, not always so delicious, but you can make it taste very delicious, culinary herb that is amazing at improving liver detoxification. It's anti-inflammatory, amazing for skin health, gut health, all sorts of things. Next up, another culinary herb that you can find in the backyard is rosemary. Also really potent at improving liver detoxification, but also great at promoting mental clarity and things like that. And you can find that usually in your cupboard or in your backyard.
And what made you interested in naturopathy? What sparked your passion?
Yeah, so I grew up in southern Tasmania in a very small town of 3,000 people. The sort of general attitude of the area was holistic living, alternative medicine, those types of things. So I was exposed to a different way of thinking in terms of medicine and healing yourself from a really young age. My first job was in an organic Whole Foods cafe. There were lots of naturopaths that came through and healers and things like that. So I was always very inspired from a young age.
And obviously you're a former student here, so tell us a bit about your experience.
Yeah, my experience here was very, very special. I had never been to a different university. This was my one degree. And the biggest thing that I loved about it, I think, was the intimacy and the access to industry leaders who were our lecturers throughout the degree. So because of the intimate nature of the uni, we were able to form really beautiful, special relationships with these lecturers, which have actually carried through as a graduate, who we now, can email or get in contact for support or jobs and things like that. And I think the size of the uni as well, there was just this beautiful sense of community. We all knew each other, we were all in it together, and overall just a really great experience.
And we have seen a huge spike in the interest for natural therapy in the past couple of years. What do you think's driving that trend?
Look, I'd say there's a few different factors, Jess. I certainly think with the advances in conventional medicine and technology, we should really be seeing the health of our world and nation improving. But unfortunately, in many cases, we are getting sicker. And I think a lot of people are just starting to look outside of the sphere, slightly away from conventional medicine or for complementary therapies to help them feel better. So in my practice, many patients that come to me have seen many specialists, many GPs, they've tried lots of different medications, but they're still not feeling well. And I think people are now just becoming a little bit more open to the idea that there could be other support out there for them.
And if there is a student watching at home that's interested in studying naturopathy, what would your advice be to them?
My advice would be absolutely go for it. The industry is clearly growing. People are becoming more aware of this amazing system of healing, which in fact is very simple. It's great nutrition, reducing your stress, getting some guidance if you've got a health ailment, getting some herbal medicine or nutritional supplements to support you. But it's really just shifting your lifestyle to benefit you in a really great way. And that sort of encompasses so many different aspects of your health. So I certainly think you should do it if you're thinking about it. The first few years can be a little bit tough, but if you can get through them, honestly, the final 2 years is just, I was so fulfilled by them. The clinical aspect, the learning just skyrocketed, and just go for it.
Freya, thank you so much for coming back and speaking to us here at Torrens University.
Thanks so much, Jess. It's a pleasure.
Welcome back to Ultima. We hope you're enjoying yourselves. I don't know about you watching, but not only am I feeling enlightened, but also a little bit hungry as well. We finish our tour of the health faculty with two areas that have become even more important as Australia and the world come to terms with the effects of the COVID-19 pandemic, and that's nursing and counselling. In a moment, we'll hear from the fabulous Buy From the Bush founder Grace Brennan, who we had the opportunity to sit down with this week, who spoke about some of the challenges the regional communities are facing at the moment. But before we do that, let's take a quick tour of the Melbourne nursing facilities and hear from one of our very own beloved students here at Torrens.
Thanks for joining us here at Torrens University Open Day on our Flinders Street campus in Melbourne. Here with me, I have the General Manager of our Health Faculty, Kath Curry, and one of our wonderful students, Nicole De Vera, who's studying nursing here at Torrens. Welcome.
Thank you.
How are you both going?
Very well, thanks. Good. Really excited to be here and see everyone today.
It's lovely to be back. Kath, I'll come to you first. And someone looking to study nursing here at Torrens, why Torrens University?
Really exciting, actually. We at Torrens were the first university to have accredited a course in over 10 years in Australia. With that, we've been able to really engage with industry, with the health sector, to work out what do they want the nurse of the future to look like. So our curriculum has really been based on balancing tertiary health with primary health care. The needs of the community now are being balanced between hospitalisation and in primary health care. So that's been a really important component of our curriculum. The other component of our curriculum that I'm really proud of is about the self-care, the emphasis on self-care in nursing. We know that nurses are really staying about 5 to 7 years in the profession before they get burnt out or something happens to them. What we're doing is really putting an emphasis on care of yourself, care on the ability to look after yourself first before you're able to care for others. So this, for us, is a really exciting component of the curriculum that we're offering here at Torrens University.
And someone watching this at home that is considering a degree in nursing but is a little bit apprehensive, what would your advice be to them?
I think come in and have a look, or speak to the people, speak to fantastic students who are experiencing the course. I think what plays a big part in the experience of a nurse and the learning journey that they're going to go through is the ability to feel that they can be open, it's safe. So we're working in a safe environment, we're studying in a safe environment, small class sizes, so that you feel that your needs or your apprehension or your requirements are met, and also that you've got the best of facilities and that you've got the best equipment in which to learn on. And that's what we're pretty excited here in the investment that we've put into our facilities and our equipment here.
Now, Nicole, you're currently studying the Bachelor of Nursing here at Torrens. Tell us a little bit about your experience so far.
So I started my course here in 2019, and I'm one of the students that is one of the first Bachelor of Nursing students here at Torrens. And coming into uni as a mature age student, I was a bit scared because I didn't know what to expect. I haven't been in school for quite some time. With the support of my lecturers and the small size classes, I was able to gain confidence. I grew a close-knit relationship with all my classmates, and we all support each other with our studies as well. And coming into 2020, we had to quickly adjust to remote learning, which I thought would be a challenge again because I've got 4 kids at home, 2 school age and 2 toddlers. So I thought, what's going to happen at home? It's going to be my studies and their studies. But in the end, it all worked out. I'll be finishing this coming May. We've only got 4 subjects left, and I'm happy to be back at campus for the final run.
So why nursing?
Why nursing? I grew up in a family of nurses, and I wanted to have a career that would make a difference in people's lives. It's a rewarding career, knowing that you've changed someone's life, and at the end of the day, that gives me the satisfaction that I've changed someone as well.
I'm an old nurse, I say, an ex-nurse, and I think, nursing for me is a profession that you got permission to touch people's lives in so many different ways, and not only the individual person that you're caring for, but also their family and their significant others. And, there are people that touch your lives just as much as you touch their lives and the impact that they have on you. And, you're in a very privileged position as a nurse in many ways. And, you're privileged in being brought into people's most vulnerable times of their life or the most happiest times of their life. And I think, it's something that, I just say it's actually a privilege to be a nurse, and it's a responsibility, and it's hard yakka, but it's good fun. Yes. And, as you were saying about the small class sizes, the students that you study with and you work with are also your support structure. Yes. You experience things when you go on placement and you experience things for the first time, and the debriefing of that and everything, and those experiences and those smells and the sights and things you experience, you'll never forget them, but you create this support structure in amongst your fellow students as well as the staff that support you in your journey.
So we've heard Nicole talk about her career choice. What are some employability opportunities that this course can open up, from your opinion?
Well, I look at many opportunities. You've got the traditional roles of nurses working in hospitals, in aged care. The aged care sector is going through an amazing change, and we'll see that continue to change. But also, nursing can take you anywhere. Nursing can take you into remote areas of Australia, like it did with me. It can take you overseas. It's your ticket to the world, really, to become a nurse.
Thanks for that, Kat. Over to you, Nicole. You're going to take us on a campus tour of the facilities here at Melbourne.
Okay, see you soon. Let's go check out the labs. Here we are in the structure and function room, where we learn anatomy and physiology not just through books, but we've got mannequins and state-of-the-art technology. This is the next stage to the learning process, and this is the task and learning room. In this room, this is where we learn our skills before heading off to the ward. This is the last stage of the learning process, and here we are in the simulation lab.
Thanks for the campus tour, Nicole. That's all from us here in Melbourne. Over to you, Lucy.
Grace, thanks for joining us.
Thanks
at
for
Torrens
having me.
University
Thanks for
Open.
coming out here.
No
to
problem.
God's country.
We are in the middle of country New South Wales with Grace Brennan, talking about something slightly different to normal. So no buy from the bush conversations today. We're talking about something that again is still close to your heart though, and that is mental health in regional areas. So a slightly different angle, but an extremely important one. Well-known statistic that 45% of Australians at some point in their lifetime will suffer a mental health issue. And when you break that down further, at any point in time, 1 in 5 Australians will be dealing with something in terms of their mental health. Those statistics don't change a great deal between the city and the country, but what does change is the extremities around suicide and self-harm, far more prevalent in regional and remote areas than in the city. Why do you think that is the case?
I think it's a few reasons, and it's a terribly sad statistic. I think it's largely cultural. I mean, we live in a remote location. You're often living a long way from other people. And so obviously you've got that kind of geographic isolation, which is unique to living out here. But there's also this cultural element of we really value modesty and resilience and strength and solving your own problems. And I think that, you know, when you're suffering through mental health, that can be a really challenging thing to overcome. And asking for help and reaching out is difficult, for sure, out here. And on top of the, you know, the geographic isolation and that cultural element, you've got the factors that come along with agriculture, which is great uncertainty, stress, debt, that kind of decision-making paralysis that happens in times of drought or crisis, like floods. And so it's almost the perfect storm in some ways for suffering mental health, and not necessarily, you're also a long way from services often. So it's not easy to see a GP, it's not easy to see a specialist. It can be really challenging.
I also think it's generational. So depending on the generation that you're from, that's going to have an effect on whether you're willing to talk and open up and put a name to what you might be experiencing. Because often we don't even know, many people don't know what the symptoms are. They might know I'm not in a good place, but they don't know what the symptoms of depression or anxiety are. So, you know, one of the most common symptoms of depression, which often isn't discussed, is irritability. So that can be put down to lots of other things, but our brain, it almost like, in a sense, shrinks. Our ability when we're not coping shrinks. So when we're coping, we can think clearly, we can be rational and reasonable. When we're not coping, our brain shrinks and we are functioning from a smaller space. So we're trying to do everything, our normal expectations, say if it's a farm or a normal day-to-day job or children, but we're eking, as much energy as we can from this place instead of this place. So the more help people get, the more they can get back to having, a fully functioning brain, that then they can get about their daily tasks and not be as irritable, not be as flat, and not be as overwhelmed.
You touched on something there that I'd like to expand upon, which is access to those services. How much of the issue is the lack of those services in terms of geographic constraints and so on versus the mentality?
This is my instinct is access is a huge problem. Yeah. And I think, if you don't even know help exists because you haven't seen it in the main street of your small town, how do you know what to ask for? So I think it's a huge problem out here. And, if you come off a motorbike, it's hard to get help. But if the injury is not visible, it's even harder because sometimes people wouldn't even know what services there were to access. Probably there's an education piece that needs to happen as well. We all talk about mental health out here a lot. We know that that's a factor of living remotely, and it's a very masculine community, a farming community often. So it's not as if we don't know that depression, anxiety, bipolar disorder, it's all present and we talk about it a lot. I don't think we necessarily know what steps to take to solve the problem yet.
When Steve Willis, the commando as he's often known, spoke at our recent speaker series, he mentioned the stigma around talking about mental health, obviously a military background, but in many ways the caricature of the regional farmer is tough, resilient, very similar. Has that stigma started to fade, or is it still as prevalent as it was 10 or 15 years ago?
Well, it's interesting to ask me because I arrived here about 10 years ago, so I'm relatively new. I think it's changing for sure. I think there's much more acceptance around, people getting help, but there's a long way to go. And, it's actually not just men out here who suffer this, it's women. And when I think all of a sudden the world would know what it feels like to live through a drought in some ways, because COVID, this pandemic, is so similar that it's got those elements of social isolation, familial stress. You don't know if you're going to have a job next week. You don't know if your income's solid. That is what it feels like, in a way, living in a small community through drought. And of course, it's not just the people in that role that are affected who might lose their job. It's their partner, it's their kids, it's the household, and more broadly, it's the community. Like when we were in the midst of this recent drought, social events were cancelled, school fundraisers were cancelled because people weren't buying tickets. All of those flow-on effects make an already isolated, vulnerable person even more isolated. And I think it's often women. It's women carrying the load of maybe farming husbands. I don't want to make it sound so old school. There are women who farm as well, but often women in households carrying this, immense stress and anxiety and uncertainty, and not having. It's not like in the city where you're guaranteed to see people in the day because you pop up to the coffee shop and see. Sometimes you don't see people for days.
So traditionally we have an idea of what someone with a mental illness looks like, or where they're from, or the type of person they might be. We know far more now that it doesn't decide, who gets it and who doesn't. Nobody is immune from mental illness. And what I found in my experience is, if you put enough major life events in someone's path in short succession, anyone can suffer from mental illness. So when we look at regional areas such as the drought, such as bushfires, you put those on people's path in the last few years, how would you not struggle? Traditionally, when we think of men in regional Australia, we tend to think that, they're good providers, they're trying their best for their family, they're trying their best for the land. And if they're not coping, the fear is that they have access to means and they're much more reactive. We know that men can be more reactive when it comes to their mental health. So if they're not coping, they may access something in a rage or feeling completely overwhelmed. They may go out onto the land, kill themselves. Sadly, it's too late then. There's no offer of help, there's no support. So the more awareness that we can do as a university and as a society, the less those things will happen.
It's well known that Buy from the Bush was essentially founded from your kitchen table.
Mm.
I'm sure kitchen tables across country New South Wales have seen that kind of entrepreneurship, but also the opposite. So those really difficult, challenging conversations.
Mm.
How much of Buy from the Bush is about raising awareness of those issues as much as raising capital?
Absolutely. It's not just about cash flow, it's really about visibility, and visibility of not just, I think when we talk about drought and even when we talk about rural communities, it's always within the context of crisis often. And it's men in bare paddocks with sick sheep, or it's, those battered hands, we've seen all those cliches, but really there is often a woman, getting through the day at the kitchen table and trying to keep life light and keep the kids fed and the kids happy. And it can get harder and harder as crises wear on. And so I think, I have what motivates me with Buy from the Bush is not just about injecting cash flow, but it's about bringing the city and the country closer together through understanding. And that's through, telling the story of what a modern rural community looks like. There's immense talent, there's innovation, but also, drought is not just the money drying up. There's some really significant ripple effects through the community.
You spoke about bringing city and country together. And we're seeing huge demand for counselling as an education pathway. What would you say to somebody sitting in there at their kitchen table in inner city Sydney that is pondering what to do with that skill set they have and looking at a regional community and wondering, is that the way to go? Well,
I would say that we need them, and we need people to invest in these communities as much as they would in the city. And that means giving us not just money, but time and energy and skills. And if you're talented and energetic, there is such a great life to be had out here, and people will be so grateful for your presence and your investment in us. And I think in 2021, everybody is searching for authenticity, and it's not easy to achieve or not easy to obtain necessarily. But if you come to a rural community, one thing you will get is an authentic, unique Australian experience, and not necessarily the one you have in your mind. There's a lot to discover, and there's lots of positivity, but there is great need. And so I would encourage them to get out and explore and listen to people out here.
Yes, our special thanks to Grace, Lisa and Chris there for highlighting some key discussion points being faced by our regional communities during the COVID-19 pandemic. Well, next up is the business faculty, where there are so many career possibilities, and here are just a few of them.
Bring out your best in a business course. You'll get hands-on, practical experience with some of the brightest minds solving genuine industry problems. Love what you do at Torrens University Australia.
Okay, let's cross back to Melbourne now, where Clement is standing by with a very special guest. Clement, who have you got for us?
Lucy, that's right. We are here with the one and only Jules Lund, and he's come back to Flinders Street. Jules, welcome back to Torrens.
Thank you. Great to be here.
Great to have you here. Now, in a moment, you will be giving a 10-minute masterclass on personal branding and the power of social media. But first, tell me a little bit about Tribe.
Well, Tribe is a marketing tech company, which is strange because I founded it and I've never studied marketing. I know very little about tech, and I've never run my own company. But 6 years ago, I saw a huge opportunity in the changes that are happening in advertising, marketing and communications. And very simply, we are an app that connects brands and marketers with their customers to generate beautiful content that is branded, that the marketers can then use in their digital advertising. And so we now have 5 offices across the globe, London, Sydney, Melbourne, New York and the Philippines. There's about 70 of us, and we're growing very quickly, and we're very excited about, I suppose, the category that we're helping build.
Brilliant. Well, the floor is yours to tell us more about personal branding and the power of social media. Over to you.
Thanks, Carmen. All right, so look, really simply, this is great for students that are looking at marketing, because I believe that over the next 5 years, the complete face of advertising as we know it is going to evolve in ways that we cannot even imagine. And I actually think that in 5 years, those people that start now will actually be ahead of those people that have potentially been in this industry for the last 10 or 20 years, because the opportunities ahead are hard to notice if you're caught looking at it through a lens of the past. And so, very simply, I believe that the world's advertising creative. And what I mean by that is the pics and clips that we use in ads can be generated by the very consumers that those ads are designed to engage. Okay? So what I mean by that is every billboard, in digital, TV ads, print ads, and all of the images that you see in your social feed will be generated by people like you, everyday people. So I'll discuss why this is such a monumental shift. So very simply, only a few short years ago, we had TV, radio, print, and outdoor, like billboards. And if you wanted to advertise on those, the idea was that you could create one asset that would go to many, many people. So that is like one TV ad that would go to many. And one of these channels, or all of these channels, held the attention of the masses. Then something changed. The mobile phone came along and social media came along. And all of a sudden, it completely shifted. So rather than one network holding the attention of the masses, in mobile and social media, millions of everyday people are the ones that are holding the attention of those masses. So what that means is, very quickly, we've gone from having one ad that goes to many to needing many ads to go to many people. Because what is very different about Google and Facebook is that they are the most sophisticated direct marketing operations in history. Simply put, you can target different people with different ads. You just simply could not do that on TV. If I put an ad on Channel 9, it goes to everyone. If I put it on radio, it goes to everyone in that frequency. But on social media, I can say, here's a little ad, and I just want that go to the mums who are aged between 30 and 40 and they live in Sydney. I want this ad to go to the college students that follow the Torrens University Facebook page. Do you understand? So all of a sudden, we need a lot more ads because we've got a lot more people that we're able to reach. So what happens there, though, is that we cannot go back to the creative industry that was originally creating those ads. For instance, if I go and want a TV ad, those people that produce those TV ads, they spend a lot of time and a lot of money on one ad. If I go to those same people that are usually creative agencies and say, I now want 200 ads exactly like that, they say, well, that's going to cost a lot and take a lot of time. Now, not only that, but if I wanted to have, say, for instance, 150 different pieces of ads in social feed, so the guys go to the guys and the mums go to the mums and the tradies go to the tradies and the young uni students go to the uni students, then all of a sudden I'm going to need so many. If I go to photographers, that's difficult too. They used to be the ones that created the billboard ads, but all of a sudden that's going to take too much time. So you've got this pressure system building, right? A whole creative industry creating ads for traditional media, but yet now there is one undeniable truth, that the future of advertising is digital, and yet no viable creative solution exists that can give you fast and furious a variety and volume at the speed and the scale that marketers now need to run their digital channels. So there's a problem. And herein lies the solution. You are the solution. Because as you have this content crisis, this drought of pics and clips, it just so happens that you hold a phone that is so advanced now, it's like having your own creative agency, right? So you now take photos, right, that are magazine quality and billboard size. You just have to look at the Shot on iPhone campaign that in the world's biggest billboards are shot on phones. So that means that everyday people actually can take marketing quality collateral that would be valuable to the brand if only they could access it. If I was to get you guys to open up your camera roll right now, you would be amazed at hundreds and hundreds of pics in there of you having a beer at a barbecue, wearing a cap, wearing a Nike top as you're running a marathon, flying on a different airline, drinking your favorite wine, eating at your favorite Mexican restaurant. Once again, those assets are really valuable if only the brand could access them. So what we see as the opportunity, and only technology is the way to unlock that creativity, is for a way that people like you and everyday people can be able to sell those pics to the marketers. And even though you could make millions and millions, like we've paid our tribe, which is, and basically without talking about tribe, we see this opportunity, and I'm only talking about the tribe not because I've built it, or I'm talking about the opportunity ahead because I've got a company that solves it. I've built a company to solve it because I've seen the opportunity ahead. That's the way around. So what I essentially am saying at that point is, if you can find a way that you can unlock all of this new creative fuel, then it's going to be far more effective. Because that's a reality. If you look at an ad in digital, like social media feeds, the content that resonates best in there is not a really highly produced creative agency TV ad. It's actually real people, right? Authenticity. Because when you're scrolling in your feed, you can see someone, a real person that is actually having real brand experience, right? It looks like a friend. You're more likely to slow down. And when it comes to conversion, in terms of getting someone's attention, that slow down is far more valuable than doing some big creative strategy. Real people having real experiences is, I suppose, anchored in the common psychology of the power of real word-of-mouth marketing. But now with social media, you can do word-of-mouth marketing at scale. People can recommend something across the globe. And so what's the opportunity there? The opportunity for marketers right now as they look forward is to actually think about community. It's not to, you don't have to be the one that is thinking about how you're going to creatively sell it. What you want to do is build a community of brand fans, right? As a marketer, think about the people that are buying from you. They're buying from you because you like it. They're following your Instagram account because they actually are interested in you. Those people can become your marketing department, they can become your creative department, and they can actually become your sales department. Soon, not only can they take the photo, but maybe they publish it to their 200 followers. And they can tag the product so that they can sell that product to their followers if their followers go, I believe in the authenticity and I want to purchase it. So as a marketer, you have more customers than you have salespeople. You can activate them and their incredible influence. And if everyone starts to think like that, then this world changes. The simplest way is to look at what TikTok is doing right now. TikTok's whole advertising campaign is saying, don't make ads, make TikToks. And effectively what that means is, right, who better to create ads that TikTokers resonate with than TikTokers themselves? You can't get a crew to come into a 12-year-old girl's bedroom and try and film her, talking about her new hairbrush. She herself has to communicate in her style, in her dialect, and that is really powerful. So that's the exciting part. If you're a content creator, you too can make a difference, but advertisers are having to unlearn that, whereas you're starting from scratch and you can be far more powerful than we've ever seen in marketing in the history so far.
Fantastic. Such insights, some revelations there for me as well. Jules, thank you so much for joining us.
No worries. Thank you, Clement.
Our industry partners are at the core of a lot of what we do here at Torrens. And earlier this week, Tim Gilbert went across and visited the Sydney Roosters to get an insight into why education is so important to them and why they chose to partner with Torrens University.
So Anthony, there it is, the team of the century. That must have been an amazing honour. Some of the names up there, Beatson, Fittler, Brass.
It was. It is a huge honour, as you just mentioned, being named in the Team 100 over the last 100 years. So it was exciting that night. I remember we had a big night and they announced each player and they come up to the stage and took that photo, and the artist was pretty amazing that painted that one.
Yours was an extraordinary career, and we could sit here all day and talk about it. But I remember going out to your parents' place when you and Mark were quite young, and we did the story for the footy show all those years ago. Yep. But to win a grand final very early on and very late, how do you look at the two Anthony Minicellos and the mind space of how you were thinking of life beyond your football days?
Very good question there, mate, because when I was young, when I was 22, you think that grand finals come around quite easily. My first ever season in first grade, we made the grand final, and then 2 years later I got the win one against the Warriors in 2002, and then 2003 and 4 we were back in the grand final, but we didn't actually win those, and you think, oh, this is quite easy, it comes around nearly every year. And then you find out that it doesn't, and it's really hard to actually lift that premiership trophy. And then when I was 33, a year before I retired, I got to lift it again as captain, and definitely much more enjoyable then because you really soak it in, and you're much more experienced, and you're a much well-rounded professional as you age, that's for sure.
And your mindset towards what happens after football would have been very different. I know so much water went under the bridge. Yep. The back injury, which virtually stopped you in your tracks, and people thinking you play football again was almost impossible. So the mindset of what came next would have been completely different to those real carefree moments as a boy.
Definitely. Yeah. You think your career, when you get into first grade, you think your career's going to last forever. That's just the way you think in your young, early 20s. And certainly my injuries put my thinking forward into what would I do if I had to retire right this very moment. And that's why I started Minifit, my own business, in 2010 after I come back from my injuries, because I always had that in the back of my head. You're only an injury away from retirement or getting pushed out, or again, when you look at it, the stats show that your career is very short and goes very quickly, so you need to do some forward thinking and some planning around your preferred I suppose education and what you want to do after you play footy.
Because that's it, it's a bit like that, isn't it? My dad says it about life, I think it's quite correct. Life's about a butterfly wing up against a brass ball. We're not here very long, but when you get older, you sort of get a clearer vision of that. You get a better lens at it. But when you're young, you don't think so much. But the quicker and earlier you work out that, I've got to think about what comes next, the better for you.
Well, it is, yeah. And I must admit the game is much better than what it was when I first came in the first grade, with education and getting people to study and work as they're coming through the lower grades, and even with first graders now, or even our staff, because you think about their workload and their scheduling, that's quite intense. So if they do want to study something, it needs to be flexible, which is really important.
And you've got to put that discipline that you had when you were playing football into your career. If you're going to have a successful career, don't you? You've got to hit the ground running, and sometimes it takes a little while to get used to it. It's a bit like changing your job and getting used to a new environment.
Well, the hardest thing is finding another passion that you're really passionate about and trying to develop that and turn that into a business or turn that into a job or work and earn you some money. Because when you think about being a professional athlete, it's probably one of the best jobs in the world. You go in, you train with your mates, you travel, you play a game, and you keep training, you recover. So that's what I think most professional sportsmen struggle with, is finding a new direction and passion that they love, that they can earn a living out of. I was pretty lucky that I went through those injuries, and now my passion is health and fitness. That's why I started Minifit. So I have a newfound passion that I could develop and make a living out of, and that takes time. That doesn't take 6 months, it takes years to think about it, develop it, how you're going to earn that money. So that's why the transition I think is a 4 or 5 year period, without doubt.
How important are the administrators in football clubs, in sporting organisations? Because MiniFit works across a number of organisations, and I know that you have seen a lot of different sports now over the past few years. How important are administrators? How important are administrators that know the game and have gone and educated themselves, either played it but really know it?
Well, it's pretty important, you know. Like, we're pretty lucky here at the Roosters that we have a professional outfit right from the board level all the way down. And a lot of them are businessmen. They love the game. Other people have been involved in the game a really long time. So, you know, you get to feed and learn off these people as you come up through rugby league, and as you get more experience, then you can start learning about some of your things that you want to move into. So having that direction from older guys that you look up to and staff as well is pretty important. And, you know, the Roosters are a pretty professional outfit.
That means the advice coming to young players whose career may only be a couple of years is great to say, well, guys, okay, we want you to be the very best football player you can be, but we really need you to think about, hey, go and do that degree, go and do this at Torrens, go and do this.
Totally, and that's you know, Trent Robinson's our head coach, and he's big on being a good person. We want good people at the club. You know, it doesn't mean that, you know, that you could be a great rugby league player, but you need to be a good person off the field. And, you know, I suppose I think the last few years and the education that's sort of been implemented by the NRL and certainly by the Roosters now partnering with Torrens is a fantastic partnership, because it lets people study and be flexible with their study, because these athletes and the staff as well, they're abided by the schedule. They've got timelines on every day, you know, so it's hard for them to learn traditionally. They need something that's much more flexible than the traditional, oh, let's go to uni and we'll study here from 9 to 5 and we'll go back and do that again the next day. You know, the athletes can't do that. So if they can have something where they can learn remotely, then that makes it a lot easier for them.
So is that why the Roosters teamed up with Torrens?
Definitely. I think it's a perfect partnership because, you know, Torrens are at the forefront of education, and professional athletes and staff, we need that flexibility to learn a degree that a player might want to learn, or a new passion that they might lead into after their footballing career, but that they can't study day to day in a traditional setting. That just can't happen because they're abided by their schedule, and they've got timelines on their daily routine, weekly routine, games every week. So they need that flexibility where they can study online or study whenever they have a moment to spare, or a day off, or a few hours here to get that degree finally, which is a great thing.
Most important question from my 11-year-old Joey, who, as you know, is a massive Rooster.
Good man.
How are the Red, White and Bluesters going to go in season 2021?
We'll go well. We're pretty consistent. We've got a great coaching staff led by our head coach Trent Robinson, and, you know, they're working hard. You know, pre-season is a pretty important time because that's what sets up the season. So we'll be fighting fit.
Good to see you, Anthony Minicello. Thanks.
Mate.
Thank you for joining us today at Torrens University Open Day. I'm joined here today with Kylie Clark, and Kylie and I are going to have a chat about the events industry.
Thanks so much for inviting me, Jess. Great to be here.
No problem. It's awesome to have you here. Now, to start off, Kylie, the events industry has been one of the highest impacted industries throughout the whole pandemic in 2020. How do you see or how optimistic are you about the recovery of the industry in 2021?
Yeah, I think that's a really great question because, yeah, it has been really impacted over the last 12 months with COVID. But the great thing about events, and I think people that work in events, they're really innovative. And so, yes, while the events industry has been very heavily impacted in terms of face-to-face events, I think it's really opened up the opportunity for new ways of delivering events, such as hybrid events and virtual events as well. So we were seeing a lot of that happen in 2020. I think a lot of people cancelled their face-to-face events, then went we still need to have business events, we still need to have our business as usual. So then they moved into that virtual space. And I think 2021, now that we're seeing restrictions like lessen a little, definitely there'll be more hybrid events. And when I talk about hybrid events, I mean there'll be a smaller constituent in the sense of meeting in person, and then you'll still have the virtual attendees as well. So there'll be kind of that mixture of two different types of delivery.
Yeah, nice. No, it's been incredible to watch the change and just to see how everyone's adapted. And I like how you've just said everyone in the industry needs to be innovative and really go with the flow, I guess. That kind of leads into my next question. What would you say to someone looking to start or to be a successful event manager? What would your top 3 skills be?
Yeah, so absolutely innovation. I think being innovative in the sense that, you know, I think innovation and adaptability come hand in hand. So they would probably be my top 2 kind of skills, especially in the current climate, because as you know, things are changing constantly, and what might be, you know, certain levels of kind of restrictions and way that event can be held one week can flip and change the next. So just being innovative, adaptable, and obviously being well organised as well. Organisation is a key component to any event manager. So just having those organisational skills really kind of ties in to bring those, you know, those top 3 skills together.
And the events industry, it's such a fascinating one. It can take you right around the whole entire world. It can present so many opportunities. In your experience, out of the many events you've done, do you have a favourite event that you can share with us?
I do, and it's probably one of my most recent events that I've ran. So as you know, Jess, I've started my own business around 2 years ago now, so just coming up to the 2-year anniversary. So worked in events for quite a long time, like 16 plus years, and then decided to go out on my own with my business partner, and we started our own event management consultancy. And so I would probably say November last year we were contracted to work on the National Gallery of Australia Know My Name virtual conference. So it's essentially showcasing female artists and really saying you know, female artists and their works really need to be spotlighted and showcased. And as part of that, there was a huge Indigenous component as well, and really showcasing Indigenous artists and First Nation people. And as part of that virtual delivery as well, we really tapped into that accessibility piece. So not only was it like mainstream kind of presented, there was also an Auslan and closed caption stream as well. So it was all run concurrently through the platform that we provided. And so that really allowed anyone with hearing impediments or sight impediment to be able to participate in the conference. So that for us was like and for me personally, that was such an amazing experience, and we really kind of set a new kind of benchmark on how virtual events should be delivered. And in addition to that, the client that we worked with were just so absolutely giving in their time and their knowledge and really explaining a lot about female artists and the artwork. And so I left there so enriched. So I was there for 5 days and I walked away and I was like, I feel like I need to be paying you, because, you know, I feel I've just learnt so much being part of this conference. So that probably at the moment is my top event.
Wow, that sounds incredible. And how amazing that, you know, going through event management and organising these events, that you can make such a big impact, and like you said, for your client to make such a big impact on yourself
absolutely.
as well.
But having that reciprocated kind of impact on one another is really, it's why I do my job. You know, that's the kind of thing that gets me up every day and keeps me going.
And last but not least, if you had one piece of advice that you could give to anyone either currently studying in the industry, working in the industry, or thinking about a career in events management, to be successful, what would your one bit of advice be?
Yeah, that's a really great question. And I would say experience. Get as much experience as you possibly can, because event management is such a broad stroke kind of, you know, degree. And there's, as you mentioned before, there's so many different avenues and so many different facets of event management. And there's the kind of like, you could be like a wedding planner, and there's, like festival kind of event management, that you can go down to the expo, or the avenue that I went down when I first got into event management being the association area. So I would definitely say anyone who's thinking about becoming an event management or event manager, to absolutely get some experience under their belt. And for those that are currently studying in event management degrees, just get experience, like kind of go out there and look at all the different areas of what event management can take you into, and then really find the area that you shine and you love, and that then that can become your niche.
Well, Kylie, thank you so much for joining us today. It's been amazing to speak with you and to find out a little bit more about the events industry, and especially from your perspective working in the industry for so long. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks for the opportunity. It's been great.
No problem.
Thanks, Jess.
And thank you everyone for tuning in with us today at Open Day. I hope you enjoy the rest of your day. To find out a little bit more information about our degrees, or about our event management degree in particular, head over to our website at torrens.edu.au. Thank you.
Thanks.
Todd, Foz, welcome to Open Day. Fantastic to see you, and thank you so much for giving up your time. Let's firstly talk about something that in many ways really defines what this institution is about. It's B Corp certification. And Todd, I'll come to you first on this. Tell us exactly what is a B Corp?
So really great question. A B Corp is a company that essentially uses its platform as a business to positively impact the world. So for a company to become a B Corp, a certified B Corporation, or a B Corp is what we call them, they actually have to pass a certification. It's a rigorous assessment that measures you on 5 different impact areas. So how you impact your customers, how you impact your staff and employees, how you impact your community that you serve, your environmental impact, as well as your governance structure, and how you build in these values and ethos into your actual governance structure across the organization. So to become a B Corp a certified B Corp, it's a really rigorous process that you have to go through to answer the questions, but the whole premise and the idea of it behind it is using your platform as a business to positively impact your community.
How does that responsibility to generate value for the community influence the day-to-day operations at the university?
It's massive. So at Torrens University, we like to say to be good, we're here for good. And what that means is everything we do is through the lens of that kind of those ethos and values. So we do things in terms of with our staff engagement. How are we training our staff to actually go out into the communities and do good in the communities? When you look at from a student perspective, we're looking at things like how are we marketing our programs? Are we actually telling the truth when we market our programs? That type of thing. But then on a kind of the broader student community is how do we actually engage our students with other certified B Corps, with industry that live and breathe these values? Some examples that we've worked through is having students support events that certified B Corps are running, or for the B Corp community, and looking at it not just from the standpoint of hosting the event, but before, during, and after. How do we get our students engaged with those companies, whether that's designing materials for the event, whether that's actually hosting the event, whether that's marketing and sales, that type of thing. So really, how do we engage students with these companies throughout the process so that students are not only getting skills and the knowledge they need to be successful, but actually understanding that there's a lot of really good businesses out here that are doing good in the world, and they can work for those companies coming out of the university.
Which is hugely valuable work. Foz, speaking of valuable, I cannot let this one slide. I have to congratulate you first and foremost on receiving your AM, your Order of Australia Medal. Look, a hugely just reward for all of your contributions to human rights, to activism, to multiculturalism in this country. Well done and bravo. We're all so proud of you. To talk about your role here at Torrens, it builds on this concept of be good, as Todd mentioned there, and that of course talks about bringing together 2 issues that are hugely important to you that you're very passionate about, which is sport and social responsibility. Can you tell us a little bit more about your vision for that role?
So sport is fast changing, certainly around the world anyway, and I think a sport within the Australian social context is starting to take more and more steps in this field of social responsibility. And it's being forced to largely by athletes all around the world, and you see the Black Lives Matter movement has been really central to that, whether it was the WNBA or the NBA or the NFL athletes, so many of these athletes standing together, whether it was African American athletes and all of their teammates, The leagues and the organisations themselves then had to start to speak out. And then the athletes were, of course, saying, well, look, you know, we're not into symbolism. So just these types of statements about your support when you're not living it over here and you're not protecting these athletes or you're not protecting us when we speak out on it. You know, these types of issues now are becoming really central to sport, both now and I think increasingly in future. So Australian sport is having to catch up fairly quickly. And we see this, I think, right across society. So again, business with purpose is a really fast growing field, and Torrens University as a B Corp is right at the heart of that and driving it. And because the next generation, millennials, are saying in particular, we don't want to work for a company that doesn't stand for anything. We want to work for a company that means something, that's doing good, you know, and we want, you know. Yeah, and we're not comfortable anymore having a career over here and separating that from the impact that our company or our career has on people, or particularly on the environment, for example, on the climate. So all of those issues are all coming together now, and sport is having to deal with that. So, you know, I happen to believe that sport as a really powerful, visible social institution has a responsibility to speak out and do good and be good in relation to all of the major social issues. So, you know, Indigenous, First Nations people reconciliation in Australia is a fantastic example. And by that I mean not just having a reconciliation action plan, not just promoting programs through sport for Indigenous kids, but actually participating in and taking a public position on reconciliation and the Uluru Statement. And self-determination for Indigenous peoples, which is their right under international law. That's different. It's different for sport, but I see that very much as the future of what leaders in sport are going to have to be comfortable with. And that's because the athletes are going to push you there. So what we want to do through Torrens University is bring through the new generation of sports leaders to inherit these positions at the helm of all the major sports, who are comfortable having these conversations, who understand that the athletes have a right to speak out on these issues, and who are going to be equipped with the tools to properly manage that through their policies, through their various advisory mechanisms, and they're going to understand that they have to be in front of Australia talking about the issues that confront us all.
And I'm not sure that you can separate the two issues anymore, particularly as we look forward to the future. Does Torrens, this is a really important question for me being a university graduate, and so I think it will also be for the students listening. Does Torrens, and indeed every university FOS, have an obligation to do more than just graduate their students in their chosen field of study?
I would say all universities, let's say the university sector, is feeling the same pressures as every other industry, both in Australia and I think increasingly around the world. You know, society's changing, and I think quite quickly. And perhaps COVID and climate change and racial equality and Black Lives Matter, and there's a whole range of these issues which I think are pushing every industry to understand that we must be about more than just the certificate. You have to now be about much more than just churning out people to go out into society who have professional acumen but have no understanding of the context or the outcome or the impact of their work. And so now that discussion is thankfully feeding down into the education system. And Torrens University, happily, and that's one reason why I felt strongly enough to join the university, is as a B Corp are actually obligated to do that. Yep. And that's important because rhetoric is one thing, substance is a very different matter. And being a B Corp means that Torrens University is measured against these factors, how they're accountable to the type of students that we produce, the tools that we equip them with, the understanding that they have of the impact they're going to make, positive and negative, when they go out into society, and I think that's marvellous.
Really important. Todd, looking to the future, how will Torrens look to build on the work that's already been done in developing the Be Good ethos?
Yeah, so I think first and foremost is we have our B Corp recertification this year that we need to get. As Craig was mentioning, it is a very, very rigorous process that'll take some time to get through. B Lab is quite rigorous with how they approach it, so that's great because it forces you to do better. The whole idea is every time you recertify, every 3 years, you actually go through that process again. So you're not only trying to get that same score, you're trying to improve on that, and that's the whole premise behind the certification. I think as a university, one of the things, kind of touching on some of his points about this bigger ecosystem, it's not just universities, it's industry, it's all of these things, it's athletes, it's the arts, it's theater, it's those type of things, is how do we actually come together as a community? It's not just my responsibility, it's our collective responsibility. So how do we partner with other universities? How do we partner with the higher education sector, industry to actually do good together, because we're all in this together, and that's what I love so much about the B Corp certification and kind of what that represents is this sense of community and how do we do it together.
It's what I love about this university, and it's what I love about talking to the both of you. Todd, Foz, thank you so much for your time. Let's head back to Open Day. Well, there you have it. If you didn't know what a B Corp was before, you certainly will now. A hugely attractive entitlement here at Torrens University, one of their fabulous selling points, because they are, as I said earlier, the only university that are B Corp certified. Well, now, to finish today, we're going to have a look through the faculty industry, the hospitality faculty, and it's an industry that of course has had to face so many challenges in the last year, no thanks to the wretched COVID-19 pandemic, but it's an industry that's also so rich with opportunity. Let's find out more.
Feed your soul in a hospitality course. You'll get hands-on, practical experience with industry leaders at award-winning restaurants. Love what you do at Torrens University, Australia.
Well, here we are, William Blue Dining. It is one of the best restaurants in Sydney. We're in George Street. I have some very special French guests with me right at the moment. Jerome Castet, of course, General Manager of Business and Hospitality here at Torrens University. Does anyone know who this guy is? Manu Fidel, how are you, my dear friend? Now, Andy, come over. Andy. So this is really interesting, and we're going to let you go around the counter here. Andy is the head chef here, of course. He looks after this place, but he also manages the students. Big wave from all our students. Big wave at the camera. They do a wonderful job. We just had a tasting plate. It was sensational. Now, you two guys, we're finishing off with a bit of fun today. We've got a plating challenge. How do you think? There can only be one winner. How do you think you guys are going to go?
I don't know. I mean, we're just going to go there and have fun. It's a friendly competition. Yeah. All right. I want to win. No.
Oh, you don't like to win, do you? All right. Well, we'll let you two go back to where you need to. And Lucy and Jerome are going to be our testers today and our judges. So we'll find out a little bit later who wins, whether it is Andy or whether it is our friend Manu. A couple of questions to you, my dear friend. I love this place. It's fantastic. And what an initiative and what a wonderful restaurant. Tell us more.
I'm glad you love it because that's unique, you know. We want to teach our students in a real life environment. We don't want to teach them in the classroom. We want them to be job ready. So everything we do across the organization at Torrens University is making sure that the students can practice with real customers what they do. So here is the restaurant where the students will be studying with real guests. And like Lucy was saying earlier on, this is in the top 10 restaurants in the world. In Sydney, not in the world yet, but in Sydney. But what does that mean? That when they finish, these students are employable. They are job ready.
And we had a little tasting plate before. It was lovely, absolutely lovely. Yeah, very secret one. Only us and everyone knows. But what about the hospitality industry? If there's one industry that's been smashed hard by this pandemic, it has been hospitality. How do you see the next little while?
Yeah, I think it's been a tough time. But look, I'm a positive person. We've got a vaccine coming. We also have an amazing country where people, and we've done very well in Australia. So there's been a lot of opportunities in the hospitality industry. Regional Australia has done very well. But what I would like to say is that people think the hospitality industry as one thing. There's restaurants, there's hotels, there's resorts, there's event management, there's conferences. So there's many opportunities. And in fact, we're seeing already all those employers really wanting to have trained staff, trained students who can add another dimension to the industry and make them more competitive. But lots of jobs already, and I'm feeling really positive for the years to come for our students.
Yeah, and as the world wobbles a bit, it's actually a really good time, and I'm not just saying this because we're with Torrens, but it's a really good time to study and make yourself that more more wanted by organisations who are looking for staff in the hospitality industry.
Absolutely. I think we already see that. Our students are in high demand, and with the growth in jobs in the industry and the travel reopening and all these opportunities, I'm feeling very positive.
Jerome, thank you so much. I'm having a bit of a look over the back. Oh, here's some slicing of salmon. It's making me hungry. We're going to be back with Lucy and Jerome, and we're going to judge exactly what happens over here. But let's head back to Ultimo and see what the latest is with Xander.
Okay.
Just a little bit louder than you normally would.
Okay.
Thank you.
Hey, how you going, guys? Welcome back to the Ultimo campus. So I'm here with Xander today, and Xander has been working tirelessly over the last few hours on some amazing work around the theme of adventure. Take it away. Show us what you've got.
Well, so I remember before I started studying here, I was telling someone that I was going to study graphic design, and someone asked me, oh, cool, what area are you interested in? And I really had no idea. So I wanted to do an illustration that was all about my adventure into this degree, and also make it clear to people the areas that they're actually going to be studying. So I did a sketch first, basically by hand, and then I scanned it onto the computer, and I spent the last few hours colouring it all in on Photoshop. And yeah, it's all the different areas of the degree, from publishing to illustration to branding and visual identity, bit of web, bit of motion, advertising, spatial design and packaging. Yeah.
Amazing. Xander's been very, very popular on campus today. He's had so many people over his shoulder asking him questions. And so I was a little bit worried you might have not got it done in time, but you certainly did, and it's absolutely amazing. Yeah. Thank you so much for coming along today and hanging out with me at our Ultimo campus. So that's it for us here at Ultimo. Thank you so much for coming along today. Xander and all of our student and alumni's work is always on show at campus, so feel free to come in, have a tour, meet one of the team here. We're always happy to have you. Back now over to William Blue Dining. Over to you, Timmy.
We're going to have to flesh this out a bit. All right, okay, we're preparing beautifully over here, and they've both gone for different techniques, so we've got a few minutes to go before we get to the judging. But Jerome, please come back in, and Lucy, come back across, because so you've been a food judge for a long, long time.
Actually, it's the first time I'm judging any kind of food. But I tell you what I have to say on this, Tim. It's the first time I'm ever having to judge food made by the great Manu and Andy over here, which is a real coup for me today.
All right, well, while we've got a little bit of time, why don't we sort of walk through your culinary worlds, because we've got a bit of the world covered here. What was on your plate when you were growing up, when a young Jerome, before the whole world started for you as a boy coming home from school? What kind of food were you? Much the same as Manu, I'm sure.
It wasn't hot dogs and meat pies. There was a lot more butter, sauce, vegetables, like France loves, fresh food. So yeah, it was healthy, and yeah, my mother and my grandmother did a good work on passing that on from one generation to another.
and food's so important in France, isn't it?
Is there something more important than food in France?
Take a look at me.
No, Manu, don't answer, that's one.
And Lucy, of course, with your, look, I'm half Lebanese, so I grew up with, like, Mum, God rest her soul, would make big plates of kusa and kibbe, and there were 6 kids, so there was no pushing food away. It was either go in hard or you'd miss out. What about at your place? What about the Zellick household, sporting household?
It was the exact same philosophy. I mean, whatever was put out in front of us, we devoured it, and it's still kind of stayed true today with the way that my eating habits have developed, because it's all about food, particularly in a Croatian, an ethnic household where it really is a part of life, and I think the French can also assimilate with that too, Jerome.
And meeting people, it's families, it's friends, it's not just 2 or 3 people eating together. I think for me what I love about food is that's social enabler, you get to meet people when you travel or when you're at home, and it's always the start of a good conversation and a lot of fun.
It is.
Absolutely, and the thing is about this institution, and we touched on it with Jerome, for students to be able to be educated in an environment, one of the top 10 restaurants, like back when I was growing up, it was like you were handed the books and you did your studies and you walked away, and then you really had to learn on the job. It's changed.
Yeah, and it used to be about P's get degrees, but we have to change that philosophy because now you're in a scenario where you're being encompassed by this environment, the type of environment that's equipping you to go out into the real world and to not feel that general shock and that contrast. Tim, I mean, I did a Bachelor of Journalism and I majored in sports studies as well, but for me, I felt like once I got out into the industry, even though I'd been equipped with all the tools, I don't know that I necessarily felt ready. Here, you are ready, and you're also in a location, mind you, in the Rocks. I mean, we talk about this being a top 10 TripAdvisor restaurant here in Sydney. This is a top 10 location in the world. You've got the Harbour Bridge in the background. You've got a slew of shopping that can get you into a whole lot of grief if you're a woman, or even a male myself who's spoiling his woman. But there you have it. You know, you've got everything right at your doorstep here, and it's just amazing.
Yeah, and the thing is, like Karl Marx and all those other studies of history of ideas that I did at uni all those years ago, when I went to Hits and Memories 2GN in Goulburn as a radio announcer, they weren't quite as, Karl Marx and the manifesto wasn't brought up as I was throwing to a bit of shiny happy people from REM. But that's the way the education system has changed, Jerome, hasn't it? And then that's one of the beauties and the cornerstones of what Torrens is all about. It's pragmatism through education.
Yeah, and we want our students to meet people from the industry. So the fact that Manu's here, Lucy, but all these people from the industry coming to share their knowledge. They've acquired it. It was a long progression, I'm sure, for everybody to get the skills. So the fact that they are sharing nowadays with our students to really share that passion, but also the skill set, that knowledge, for them is invaluable.
Okay, all right. I think we're getting close. How are we?
We're good.
Okay, we're good. All right. Ladies and gentlemen, okay, Lucy and Jerome are going to judge this, and we will place the dish up here first from Andy. Andy's dish, of course, head chef here at William Blue. Andy, if you could place your dish up. There it is, and I'll take that to the camera so you can see it. Wow. Looks absolutely beautiful. Lucy.
Wow. Andy, you have to tell us actually, what have you prepared?
It's actually a cured ocean trout, similar to a pastrami crust on there. Mm-hmm. We've got a little bit of crab remoulade. It's not a very traditional remoulade. Some flying fish roe, pickled samphire, fresh fennel and apple. Yeah.
Beautiful.
And we'll grab this. All nice.
I've done the same ingredients, different plating.
Same ingredients, different. The bread moves slightly. Okay,
so if it doesn't look good, it's your fault.
Bread moves slightly. But you can see that there. Oh, doesn't that just look absolutely gorgeous?
Wow.
Sensational. Now, ladies first.
Ladies first.
You need to score them out of 10.
Am I eating them with my hands like you did back in the day?
Yeah. So you need to judge on two specs. You need to judge on plating.
Yes.
And on taste. We'll grab some cutlery. Yes. Thank you so much. Hello, Rita. How are you? Come in. I
find myself in a very difficult position here because I'm judging between two expert chefs.
You seem like you're coping pretty well. So that's Andy, that's Manu.
Right.
You can have a taste and then you can walk away and make your judgment calls. Scores out of 10. Jerome will then come in, of course. We heard about the way that he grew up, and look at him. I've seen more fat on a chip than this bloke. Can't tell he's been eating butter. Little taste there.
Oh my gosh.
Nice.
Oh my gosh. It's interesting.
Thumbs up, Lucy.
It's just incredible.
There's our camera, our bird's eye view. I love the presentation over the top here.
Yeah, just a little bit.
I'm sure next time I'll talk to the producer to see if I can be a judge, because I would have taken a lot bigger mouthful.
Wow. Mm.
Okay, now
I've got to have a try now.
So Lucy, you go away and consider.
Do you want a fork, Tim?
No. Thank you for the offer.
Okay, so my turn.
Later I'll just dig in. Here's Jerome. So Lucy's over there thinking. She's got a little bit of thinking music going on. We've got to judge them both out of 10. We will add the scores up.
So this is made by our head chef at William Blue Dining.
What did you think, Jerome? Look to your camera over here. What did you think of Andy?
Andy's always done an amazing job in this restaurant, so I'm not surprised that, for me, that's the first dish I'm trying, and it's the leading contender so far.
The leading contender so far. Okay. Manu Fidel, ladies and gentlemen. And of course, the sauce, that is the new business of Manu. You'll see that in
touch of Frenchness. It's going to be a hard decision. How long do we have to make a judgment?
Well, you've got to walk away for the minute, and we'll give you the background music. If you walk over to the soundproof booth over there, Lucy can come back in, Now, Lucy, keep eating, why not? Look, you've both done such an amazing job. Looks fantastic and obviously tastes fantastic. Let's look at Andy's dish first. Score out of 10 from Lucy Zellick, ladies and gentlemen, here at William Blue.
This is probably, and I've done some difficult things in my life, but this is probably up there as one of the most difficult I've had to do, because you're trying to split two exceptionally created, prepared and displayed dishes.
Yeah, and we're looking at you.
And, and you are looking at me. Yeah, exactly. You're staring down at me thinking, well, how is she going to judge this? Because you, of course, Manu, are used to judging people. You, Andy, in your role, judging your students here at Torrens University. Look, I'm going to score this an 8.5 out of 10.
8.5 for Andy.
There's 0.5 now.
Yes. Can you do a 0.5? Is that done in the MasterChef and culinary world? I'm not sure.
Yes, you can. Well, we're making the rules up there.
Okay. All right. Well, it's an 8.5 out of 10 for me. The presentation is beautiful. The first bite was just so delectable. I was so satisfied.
And the beards are both quite good too.
The beards are very exceptional, I'd have to say. But
That's
I prefer.
It's going to be very cool.
I mean, I understand we are also judging on beards. So if I am to go on personal preference, unfortunately, Andy, I do prefer a more manicured beard.
Yeah, but that's not part of the scoring system.
I thought it was.
I'm the ultimate judge. I'm the ultimate judge on you. But, yeah, that's a nice commendation. Good beard.
Thank you.
And now over to here.
It's an 8 out of 10 for me. And I'm sorry, Manu. I'm sorry. I know that you're very used to judging people's. I thought your presentation was marginally better than Andy's, but the first taste, the first bite, the complement of flavours in the way that it was presented, it just really appealed to me.
Thank you very much.
That's me.
How do you feel about that?
Jérôme.
Well, it's a competition and you have to take it the way it is, isn't it? They're the customers. You just wait.
Bring in Jérôme. Okay, so at the moment, we're taking the beards out of the official scoring, special commendation. So Manu's taken a gold medal, but that is, so in the beard judging. So he's won that side of the competition. But at this point, it's 8.5 to Andy. It is 8 to Manu. So don't feel any heat or pressure.
We've got a design college at Torrens University. Maybe Manu would be like a head judge for our design courses.
What about his beard? This has got a bit more, God rest his soul, George Michael about it. A bit of careless whisper, this one.
I wouldn't call that a beard, sorry.
Let's talk about cooking now.
Okay, we digress. Here it is. Here's Andy's dish, all right?
I think I've got a new appreciation for what it means to be a judge now, Manu. I think I'm going to look at these programs in a very different light, but I've got to give a score, yeah? So I've got a score between someone who's working in these restaurants every day and, and a celebrity chef who's French like me. So how do I do that? So,
you should judge the dish, not us. That's the thing you need to do.
Okay. So blind test. I must admit, Manu's presentation is amazing. I've got a bit of a soft spot for the taste of Andy, so I'm going to go for an 8.4.
8.4 for Andy.
Can we do 0.4?
8.4 for Andy.
An 8.4 for Manu and an 8.5 for Andy.
Oh! Andy has won 8.5 plays, 8.4. Add those all together, it's a narrow win for Andy. But how do you feel about that, Andy?
Marginally better than Manu, I would say, yeah.
Manu, you've already given us your thoughts. It's a competition.
It is a competition, and using the same ingredients, different texture. But it's interesting how the two different plating have got different texture, even using the same ingredients, because it's about different layers in different ways, and then you soft crunch and so on. So it is different.
So we've had a little bit of fun here, but most importantly, question to you: how good's this? How good is it that we're in a kitchen with students learning all about it?
I might just apply for a job.
No, but seriously, how good is it?
No, it is. It's fantastic. I mean, this is the way you need to learn the industry. It's you can learn in a book, you can see pictures, you can be told about it, but there's nothing better than actually working in here.
Yeah, and you've done a great job, Andy. Thank you so much, Manu. Thank you, Jérôme. Lucy, we'll pass it back to you. You've done an extraordinary day. I'll give you 10 out of 10 for your performance
10
today.
out of 10, thank you.
The cameras are all yours. Jérôme, back over here. We've got more food to taste.
Congratulations, of course,
Thanks,
to Andy. And what a coup it's been to
No
have
worries.
a great moment for He's been absolutely fantastic. Guys, unfortunately, that is all we have time for today, which I'm very sad to say. I only met them recently towards the back end of 2020, and what I can say is that this is such a progressive, wonderful family to get to know. And in many ways, being a university graduate myself, I'm completely envious of everything that they're striving to achieve here and the standards that they're holding themselves at as one of the most progressive and newest universities here in the country. And as we've spoken about already, the only university in the country that is B Corp certified, which is such a massive coup. Guys, there's still so much more happening. Of course, don't forget that the virtual open day is happening tomorrow, live from 4 p.m. You can tune into the stream. So head to the website, which is www.torrens.edu.au for more details on how to register. On behalf of all of our very special guests and everyone here at the Torrens University family, thank you so much for joining us. We hope that we'll see you again soon, but for now, it's goodbye from me and everyone here at Torrens.